for another What is Japan Saying About? Blah, 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 blah. Today's theme is the new extreme trial, Sphene's Burden. We'll be looking at what aggregate sites such as Umadori have gathered across the Japanese player base this week. And these sites gather things from official sources, Twitter, and most often 5chan, so do keep in mind that some reactions can be pretty exaggerated. Plus, when we also look at the comments, just imagine that it's the same type of audience you might see on 5chan, so their comments are just as exaggerated. So the first part we're gonna look at related to the new EX is, and unfortunately now no longer done strats. Everybody has decided on square or L pattern, but early on we had PP strat, as my group called it. Japan apparently calling it Neon Armstrong Cyclone Jet Armstrong strat. And the responses were pretty much exactly what you expect. Perfection. That's great. This is how it should be done. Perfect for the Eternal Queen. And equivalent responses of memes and the like. Person 1 here is saying... My line, there it is. This looks better than the line strat. Which honestly, I kind of think they're right. It looks less spooky than line strat. I don't think NA does line strat at all though. And 5 actually saying... PP strat might be a bit inappropriate, but it has minimal left to right movement, so it's pretty efficient and way better than the dumb line strat. I won't be doing either though. Unfortunately, the funny meme strats have become, I guess giving her 2 L's is a different funny meme, but unfortunately, this is kind of fallen off. Moving on, the next part is their response to the reject authority mechanic. Or strat. So 107 here is saying, I saw some foreign player do absolute authority with everyone ignoring half the mechanics and stacking. Is this some kind of bug? Lol. 93 responding with, you can ignore absolute authority? And sharing Saranaya's video, which shows that exactly what you guys have seen us do already. You can just stack everything as long as you super mid it. And then we have 102 responding. This has to be a bug, right? 105 pointing out that didn't something like this happen in top? And 104, it is literally just like, this is chaos. This is all over the place. This is awful. But I wanted to translate in the spirit of 14. It is a very big, great googly moogly. It's all gone to shit vibe. And 134 did point out that top was never changed, so neither will this. Later in the comments, one saying, oh, this is something even pugs can do. Even PF can do this. 2 pointing out that they have absolutely massive shields and mitigation. There's no way randos will be able to do it like this. 3 saying, okay, but what if you, like, plan this all beforehand? To which 5 responds, and okay, you have fun doing that. you have fun talking to them every single time. I do think that it will probably result in this being standard across all regions, that you can just absolute authority cheese. I don't think that that's gonna change. As it probably will make some healers not want to do the fight, or some groups struggle to do the fight if the healer isn't doing it. Oh, it looks like they even noticed They had to learn what AA cheese means. I just noticed this one I haven't done before. But someone saying I was looking around on Elemental Party Finder and I was like, wanted to know, what does AA cheese mean? And then they had to explain that that means absolute authority cheese, as we call it in English. But yes, cheese meaning... I don't even know how... I don't actually know the etymology behind how cheese means what it is. But cheese means to kind of ignore something for any Japanese people that are not aware. To do something not really the way it's intended. Somewhat of a silly... brute forcing, almost. More on mechanic responses. Jumping back, the response to the markers that have been going around. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I've seen it. I don't trust them personally. Not because I know they don't work, or because I don't think they're gonna work, but because I don't need these. I'd rather just use my eyes. But I do know that I've seen these markers similarly. Here, I'll show them on screen. If you've done any EXs, EX3s, you've definitely seen these. You've probably seen these markers for the final phase. The interesting thing I found with this post was that what I think is on like Twitter and the like, a lot of people have been like, oh, I want those markers. Give me those markers. A mechanic that I can turn my brain off for. Please share. And the like, they were very much wanting it. Genius. Calling them a genius. But if you scroll down further, we've got number 4, which is... yeah. But there are lines on the floor that are easy to... You know what, never mind. And 12, similarly, with... there they are. Just use your eyes, look around. Is it really that hard that you need markers? And 18, comparing it like, good old Hades, Lamel. I do have to say, personally, I will probably never use the markers. Even if they're placed, I will probably not do the markers. It's nothing against necessarily the markers, it's that I don't really think they're necessary. Maybe when you're first starting out, they can be a source of comfort. Especially when you're not quite used to it. But the minute that you know it's going to be happening, at least for me, I think it's very easy. And then the main thing to always remember is you have still a few moments to move after the field change. So don't move off the field, obviously. I'd personally much rather have coronation markers to know whether or not this party is clockwise or counterclockwise than these markers, personally. Because there's so much safe space. The only thing you have to worry about is when it's ice, when it changes to the ice field, they do still have the ice bridges, and I've seen people be a little too close. And I think it was with these markers too. But be a little too close that it counted them 2 people on the ice bridge and the ice bridge collapsing because of it. So, I don't know. I'll just hang in the back and hope it's... And then just kind of squeeze over into the earth phase. There are lines on the floor. I agree with 4 though. There are lines on the floor. The general reactions, though, to EX Sphene are these. So, 247 saying this EX's meteor mechanic doesn't really allow for anyone to make mistakes, or it's just over. You're even shoved onto another new mechanic right after. That plus the fact there's no looping mechanics, I feel like it's a bit hard. Feels like a 2.5 fight of a tier. 248 saying it's too long. Don't make these fights 10 minutes long. Make them like 3, like back in the old primal ARR days. 250 saying I did the EX blind and the latter half I just wanted to die. I don't get it at all. 264 saying I think this time I'll clear once and never touch it again, lol. It's so freaking annoying. 265 saying that even you can't skip ice phase with the current eye level and get stuck at 0.1%. This is dumb. 266 saying ice phase isn't even needed. It's fucking boring. 267 saying, why is the tower mechanic in the latter half, as in post fake out, so intense? 272's opinion here stating, IMO, it's not really that hard. It's just the mechanics that pugs are gonna be shit at, like the ice phase. Not sure what to do so people won't die during it. 300 here saying, a Savage Healer caster will just drop dead from a virtual shift to the face. It's gonna be wild when I-710s get in there. And I've seen I-710s. They die even with mitigation. They will die even with mitigation. 305 saying, out of everything, the meteors is the most demotivating. I assume they mean like when you fail it. 315, gotta find them. 315 saying, the ice bridges are a mess unless you mark people for priority. If you leave it up to them to just go when they get tethered, so many will hesitate and just kill each other. I hope we get some easy macro like Ultimate Omega's codes. 343 saying, I was expecting something like Valley, but got super ultra masochism extreme instead. Extreme masochism. And 344 is saying, if Ice Pro has too many rules, people will overthink and take even longer to move, resulting in even more PvP-enabled BS. Just use your eyes. Unless you want to use stuff like tools. Wink, wink. Yeah, I think it's funny. I think it's funny that they have that thought in the back of their head. But yeah, I can... See, the funny thing is, I like this fight. I like this fight a lot. I think that... I don't understand 247's point about why aren't there any loops? Why? Why do we need a loop? That just means they couldn't build a fight, like, long enough. I'd much rather everything be unique or build off each other than a loop. I don't mind, like, a partial loop, I guess. But I don't really want to see a loop. I mean, it kind of makes the... That was, like... That's an old fight design tactic, like Heaven's Ward and stuff. I think it's much better to not have any loops, or again, at most, like a partial loop where like it changes to a different variation or something. I do think this is one of my favorite EXs, but the problem, of course, is I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it after farming it. Not because of the fight itself, but because of the people that will be in PF that I'm gonna have to work with. And while I know I personally can do the reject authority version, I don't know how well it's gonna go in every party depending on item levels. I've had a white mage that was in full I-710s. Yes, they were crafted high quality, but that's I-710 and they're just getting torn to shreds. There was actually, Haru linked to me a Japanese party finder post that was going around with a paladin who was like, well, I get how to do mechanics and I know my rotation, it's no problem, but I just can't clear. And they're in all I-710s. They're in full crafted, not a good look. With the implication, the way that they phrased it was the implication of I should have cleared by now. Why can't I clear? I know what I'm doing. But they don't even have 720 gear. Maybe you don't know what you're doing. But yeah, I do think personally this is one of the more enjoyable EXs. I do think it's long, but I mean, that's why it gives 2 tokens. I do think that the meteor failure, I do agree with... Which person was it? 305. I do agree partially with 305 in that a minor hiccup to meteors is really demotivating, and it really sucks. Because, at least in practice, I think people have experienced some issues with the elevator to go up or down. And both with the towers, well, the towers can be kind of pushed through anyway. If a meteor is missed or a meteor gets placed in a spot it shouldn't due to a dead body, you're probably wiping. Either because 2 rocks are too close, or you have too many rocks and they can't all explode. That's probably the most... I don't want to say punishing, but it's the most... Actually, yeah, I guess, because it is an instant death. I would say a meteor hiccup is not necessarily, like, common, but it's... Because of the way the gravity mechanic works, it's probably the one you'll see the most, and it'll be the most frustrating because it almost feels like it's somewhat out of your control. And it's not like they weren't trying to make it work. It's, you know, for some reason they got sent down and then back up again. Or they got sent up and then back down again. A bunch of silly shenanigans will happen, and it's not necessarily the fault of the player involved, but a weird anomaly with the fight. But I personally really like it. Again, I think it's one of their best. And I mean, if they don't like it, they can just not do it. If they don't like it, they can just not do it, you know? And finally, one other little first reaction relating to the patch. The, Yue Yawata... Oh, shoot. What's the form? Yue Yawata dungeon. I forget the last name. Forgot the last word. Anyway, Yue Yawata reactions to the fight. So, we have this person here saying, when I did Yue the first time, I went, ah, holy shit, why? Yue Yawata is so hard. Crying emoji, but not crying emoji. Just tears, crying. The first time I went... Oh, whoops, wrong window. First time I typed, "This is the third boss?" in chat and was super hype. Really fun. I won't forgive the third boss! What is it? This one. IMO, it's better than Deadwalk. The third boss is interesting. This person. Tiny arena, tiny arena, tiny arena, tiny arena, tiny arena, tiny arena, tiny arena. That's how I would translate it, but it's like saying like it's really tight, like claustrophobic feeling, like tight, so little movement space. But that's why I would translate it as tiny arena. And someone's saying that people that are bad at movement, that are bad at the game, are gonna have a hard time clearing this. What I did have a really rough expert dungeon recently in it, where the 2 DPS were actually no, I think the 2 DPS I was on stage, I think, or one of the healers. The 2 DPS were pretty much dying to everything in the third boss, and they did not grasp how to maneuver their character for it, is all I really gotta say. So, that comment, you know, people who are bad or who have trouble with movement during battles are gonna have a trouble clearing this, is very much true. 101 saying, Yue Yawata is so much better than Deadwalk. On your first run, there'll be mechanics that surprise you, but if you struggle with movement, you're gonna have a bad time. 3 saying, I cannot believe they play tested this and gave it the go-ahead. This fucking sucks as a melee. 7 saying, why do they only ever put things in that are hard for melees and tanks? I'll save my thoughts on that in a moment. 11 says, if you get 2 melee DPS, Yue Yawata is hell. The tank should disengage in that situation, but that's never gonna happen. Ever. And 12 saying that it's a lot less annoying than Deadwalk. Now, the opinion about the whole melee situation is, I'm sorry, but we had an entire, 2 expansions which, catered specifically so melee never had to disengage despite having higher DPS than jobs that also never had, that also basically couldn't disengage, right? You know, the trade-off of having the higher DPS is that sometimes you're gonna have to disengage. you're going to have to balance the when do I disengage and when do I get to hit the boss. And that's why you get the higher DPS versus Fizz range, which is all the way down quite a bit from them, and they have all the benefits of melee with movement for most attacks, while using their attacks, you know, as I said, but they have such lower DPS because they can't disengage. Like, it's impossible. Well, it's very difficult, okay? Not impossible, but it's difficult for them to not be able to hit the boss. So they're getting penalized for having that, whereas melee should have been given that balancing act to, you know, balance out their higher DPS. But for, like, 2 expansions, you know, melees have been super catered to. That I think, you know, I'm glad that there's been a change personally, because there's been a long time where casters are kind of like completely ignored in terms of strat making. That's all about the melee's uptime. Like, gosh forbid a caster want to stay still for certain mechanics. Gosh forbid we have a caster uptime mechanic. We barely ever have those. I've been getting frustrated a little. Now, I'm a healer, so it's whatever, but a little frustrated at the fact that the way PF does meteors is a movement every single meteor, most of the time. So, fuck caster uptime, apparently. Casters aren't allowed to get uptime, apparently. Which is a little frustrating. That, you know, melees will have entire strats planned around them getting their uptime, but gosh forbid, you know, like, the caster players pretty much, you know, say, hey, you know, we should also be getting things that benefit us too. You know, casters usually don't. At least me, I'm like, whatever. I'm a healer. It's not that much DPS, but, you know, if a caster would ask, like, hey, can we, like, do it this way so that I can get another cast? I'm sure people are like, but why? Like, casters just don't answer that kind of stuff, even though they've been, I don't want to say discriminated. They've had to struggle with PF strats, at least in NA especially. But that would be pretty much all I have this week. Not too much. Like I said, I mostly focused on the Sphene trial, so there wasn't too much to talk about. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on the new Extreme trial? Do you guys like it? Do you not like it? What is your preferred meteor strat? I will miss, you know, as much as I memed and made noises about PP strat, there's something I can even admit is kind of funny. I will miss you, PP strat. I'll miss you. I'll miss you, PP strat. One day they'll come back, I swear. Double L's is pretty good too, though. I kind of am... I don't really like box, though, I think. I get why box exists, and that was actually my first guess, but I'm not really a fan of box. But that wraps up to this week's What is Japan Saying About? And those are all the topics I have for this time. If you'd like to see more, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I also live stream on YouTube and Twitch almost every day, and record these live every other week on Sundays. And with that, for the YouTube video future crew, I'll see you next time. Oyasumi. Bye bye!